Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me directly through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is an internationally syndicated show solely due to the love and support that you all continue to show. We're available across all major podcast distributors. And like I mentioned, people, if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in because we are delighted to showcase this next guest on our network. And on the line with us today, we have the impressive R.L. Greenwood, and we're going to be discussing his amazing book, A Visit to the Kingdom of Camelot. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, all the regular online book resellers, right? Head on over there, pick it up. But if you want to gather everything that Bob has in store, check out his personal website, and that's bobgreenwoodbooks.com. There, you're going to find more information on Bob himself, more information on his fantastic books. You're going to find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing pages. So once again, that's bobgreenwoodbooks.com. And before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity and point out the fact that Bob was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best advertising firms in the business, people you already know. I'm talking about Stellar Literary Press and Media. So for my writers out there who have gone through their process creating your masterpiece, and now you've done it, okay? You need help moving the book that you just finished developing though. Contact Stellar Literary people. They're one of the best in the business to do it, and this is exactly what they specialize in. So head on over to stellarliterary.com today and gather all the fantastic ways that their team is gonna help you do just that. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Bob here on the line. You know, Bob is a truly impressive individual, man, and his book is something you're going to want to get lost in. We've all heard of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, right? Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably grew up reading stories like that and just being engulfed in the fantasy world that King Arthur was derived around. Well, his book is going to really be a stretch from that, right? It's another branch off of that fantastic tree, but it's one like no other. It's going to be entertaining to no end and one that you're going to love becoming lost in. And at the end of the day, Bob is the expert, man. It's his book. He's written it. He's going to be able to articulate it all much better than I ever could. Sit back, strap in, and get ready for a fantastic journey. Bob, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, good. Very happy to be here.
Well, you know, listen, Bob, as my grandmother would say, there's no flies on you, man. You've written 5 books and one still on the way. Truly an impressive feat. I'm loving what you're doing here. I love all of the books that we have in store and the journeys that we're able to embark upon. But let's start with your book, A Visit to the Kingdom of Camelot. First and foremost, what inspired you to write such a great book, Bob?
Well, I had my late mother and sister-in-law asked me to write a story for her grandchildren. Mm-hmm. So I wrote that first story. The kids came down. I came to visit. They loved the story, and so every time those kids came down to visit me, I had another story for them. And I got enough to put in a book and decided just to get it published. Yeah. Tried to get it published here in Canada, but nobody wanted it. So I went down to the States and self-published it down there. And it's been going ever since. I just kept at it. I just got a kick out of writing it. You get more kick out of it giving it away. I've given out about 2,000 copies of books to everybody that lives here in Andover Terrace, where I live. Mm-hmm. Gets a copy of the book when they move in, until I run out. I'm out right now, but the parents and grandchildren, the grandchildren get a lot of books from their grandparents here. And the grandparents have gone through them. They've got to check them out, make sure that they're safe for their kids. They love them. The kids love them. I've never had a single criticism of any of my book or any of my books. They all love my books. And the biggest kick I get is to watching one of those kids read one of my books. It's just so delightful.
Well, listen, we're very glad that you did, Bob, because now we have this fantastic book. And listen, I want to go a little bit deeper with inspiration here. Like I mentioned in my opening, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table by no means is a new concept, right? I mean, they've been around for centuries. We're all very familiar with them, but what inspired you to branch off that particular literary tree and create this book, Bob?
Well, I grew up reading comic books, and I remember reading about King Arthur in Comics Illustrated when I was a kid. And got a real bang on. I really enjoyed it. But one criticism I had of the King Arthur myth is that it's very, very violent. And I don't allow violence in any of my books. I've tried to avoid them. Mm-hmm. I avoided it with King Arthur. I avoided it with Robin Hood. In Robin Hood, the sheriff gets an arrow in his butt. That's his punishment. It's funny, but it's avoiding any serious or nasty violence. I don't think kids need that. They got enough violence every day to see. They don't need to see it in their books. And I want those books to be enjoyable. I want the kids to enjoy them, and I want them to learn to read. And for enjoyment, stay with them all their lives.
Listen, I love that notion, Bob, and as a parent myself, it's definitely something that I can get behind. You mentioned a moment ago your love for comic books growing up and how you were an avid reader, or are an avid reader still to this day. Well, tell us about some of the writers or artists who inspired you to carry on this great tradition of creative writing, Bob.
Oh, I don't know if there's any writers in particular. I did a lot of reading myself, and my reading had allowed me to kind of waltz through high school and university. It came in so useful. It's been with me all my life. I lived most of my life. I put on weekly newspapers for 10 years. I went to university, moved to the coast, and carried on. I more or less made my life writing.
Oh, there you have it. People, again, we're here on the line with R.L. Greenwood. We're discussing his fantastic book, A Visit to the Kingdom of Camelot. You're going to want to head on over to Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, bobgreenwoodbooks.com, and pick up copies and get lost in it. Remember, there are a lot of other books as well that he's written. Plenty for you to check out and get involved in. Bob, moving on here, really a curiosity for myself with this next one, man, but What would you say was a highlight for you? Or, maybe something that surprised you during this writing process that you weren't anticipating before you began, Bob?
No surprises. I just went ahead and wrote it. A lot of that, the writing of that book I had an exercise book, and I was exercising every day, every morning, and I'd be, you want something to think about. Well, I'd be writing my book on my exercise bike, and when I went to bed at night, there's always that period when you go to bed and your mind won't shut down. Well, I just kept it busy writing that book. And all my books, most of it's been written as I go to bed at night. Before I go to sleep, I'm writing a book or working on that book. It's a lot of fun. I get more kick out of my book than anything else I ever do. It's great.
Bob, as we start to close out of this book, because I do want to give you an opportunity to go into another one of your titles, but let's dive into our imagination here, right? Let's take that title as an actual invite, right? If you had the opportunity to enter the world of Camelot, right, and you could visit any part of your book and you could experience it for a day, which part of your book would you choose to live in and experience, and why?
Oh boy, I've never thought of that. I'd like to go to the castle and sit around the round table with the knights. It'd be so much fun.
Well, listen, people, again, Bob has 4 other books released at the moment. And like I mentioned, another one on the way, hopefully another 10 on the way, man, because there's so much here that we're loving just getting lost in. But you have one that I'd like to go into. Okay, now you got a lot of titles, but there's one in particular, and that one is called Trial of the Cave People. I'm curious about that one, Bob. Give us a little bit more information. Tell us a little bit more about it, please.
Oh, Trials of the Cave People. This is the one book I wrote that is purely out of my imagination of how the cave people developed and moved out of the caves into homes. It was a fun trip. And that's every bit of it's out of my head. There's no plagiarizer using any other book to write it. It's all mine. It's hard to explain when you come up with some crazy thing like that. It's just intended to get kids entertained and enjoy reading and carry on with it. Another book I have is Camelot Revisited, where it takes the next step. King Arthur has gone, he's died, or left anyway. His son's taken over. Artie is now king. It goes a little different direction, but same part of the same idea of King Arthur. King Arthur doesn't play a big part in it. He's just mentioned. He's just part of it.
Bob, as we close out of here, we have discussed a lot of very beneficial pieces of information and, of course, discussed a number one of your books. Is there anything else that you would like to let our listening audience know before we close out?
Yes. I'd like parents to listen, take their kids to bed, put their kids to bed with a book. reading to the kids at night. It's a good way to get kids to bed, and it's a great way for kids to get interested in reading. Mm-hmm. I had a nephew who was told, he kept saying, I want to read. His parents read books every night, and he wanted to read. And they kept telling him, well, wait till you go to school. Well, he went to school the first day, came home, he was really annoyed. His mother said, what's wrong? Well, he said, I still don't read. He'd been there all day. That's the kind of attitude I like to hear. Mm-hmm. And instantly, that kid is now teaching school. He teaches French, among other things. He's a real character, and really, he reads all the time and enjoys it all. He's built his career on it. Really important.
No, absolutely. But Bob, I love that advice. I mean, such great advice and powerful words. Not only was it great advice, it has a great impact that it can have on a child's development, but an even bigger aspect that I'm taking from that is simply being involved in your child's life, right? Instilling wonderful habits and a foundation that can be immensely beneficial to them and to the individuals that they ultimately become. And listen, people, remember, a visit to the Kingdom of Camelot is simply the beginning, all right? Bob has a lot more in store to keep you engaged and more on the horizon, all right? Yeah, you need to head on over there, all right? It's called bobgreenwoodbooks.com. Check out all of these magnificent titles that he has available. Bob, this has been an absolute delight. Okay, thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Good. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.